And greetings, casual citizens. I'm Paul, and I'm joined today by my good friend Haley. Say hi, Haley.
Why, hello, everyone.
And we are here reviewing Big Little Lies and the season two, episode one. What have they done? And well, let's just start off as we always do with some thoughts. Haley, what are your first thoughts on this episode, on this premiere?
I thought it was great. Loved the openings and getting to be reintroduced to all the characters again. The music, I mean, was amazing as always
As
in
always.
every episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good.
um yeah, it was a little slow, but that's kind of how season 1 was. I felt like it was slow at times, but it was a very nice introduction to the characters again.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I think so I went back and I watched some episode or for some episodes from season one, particularly the last episode. And
Hmm.
I do feel like I watched actually the first and second episode of last season, and then the last episode of the season. And when I watched especially the premiere of season one, it was so
Hmm.
immediately engaging, right?
Oh, yes.
This one, I didn't feel like it was quite that engaging, and I'm really interested in it because I like all the characters, so it's all so good. But like, if this had been the premiere of season one, it probably wouldn't have caught me as well. But then again, is that important? I don't know.
I can no, I can see that. And plus they're kind of really, kind of stretching, I think. You know what I mean? So, there wasn't even supposed to be a second season. I mean, there was only supposed to be one originally, I believe. And then it wasn't until later they're like, okay, we'll do a second one.
Right?
So, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I can feel that.
Yeah, and because this is based on a novel, right? And I think it's kind of we're kind of reaching a HBO runs into this a lot because they have a tendency.
Right? They have a
Yeah.
tendency.
They have a tendency, which on the one hand is really good in that, hey, we're gonna make shows about these really interesting, kind of atypical, sort of niche books or properties or things like that, right? Like Game of Thrones. Also, The Leftovers was the same way, and then
Right.
they take it to a point where it's like, okay, now we're past what the source material is, and so now we have to come up with new stuff. And with the leftovers, it worked really well. With Game of Thrones, it did not work really well.
Right.
And so I'm interested to see where this one goes. However, I will say that I think an important distinction is, and what gives me hope going forward, the leftovers, um, Damon Lindelof, he got in contact with the guy who wrote the book originally, and so the guy who wrote the original book really helped the story for seasons two and three, was continuously involved, and that wasn't really the case with George R. R. Martin, right?
True.
Benioff and Weiss kind of went off and did their own thing, and Martin was kind of like, well, here's kind of what I thought would happen, and here's how it would go, but wasn't really super involved with the story and the writing.
I know.
I
I know.
noticed for Big Little Lies that the author, I think her name is Liana Moriarty, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
She is still involved, and so she's doing the story, and she's still involved with script writing for this season. So I hope it works out like it did for Leftovers. So
Oh no, I totally agree. And I think the fact that, we have like the, you know, acting in this is so great too. So
yep,
I feel like that also is a nice thing to have in
yeah,
have in the equation.
yeah, and because I mean you've got such world class actors and actresses, right? Mainly actresses. But I mean, the actors, the guys they have in there are good actors too. But
Oh yeah, I mean, God, Skarsgård in first season was just, I mean,
you're right.
you go back. I mean, I went back and rewatched that first season, and he's just absolutely incredible. I
Yeah,
mean, just he's so good.
it's interesting for me because like I dislike his character so badly, right? Like, but
I know.
he does pull it off really well. I'll give him that.
Oh, well, because he's able to have that, like, you see how he is with his boys and like
mm,
how good looking he is and how great of a father he is. So you see like this like spot that Celeste finds herself in. Like he is a good dad and she is attracted to him and he does provide, but also that big fuck deep dark secret that they have is just, I mean, does not outweigh what, she's, going against when it comes to him. So I mean, he nailed that.
right. And I felt like they did an interesting job of making him a three-dimensional character, which can be difficult for something like that. And
Mm.
and there's always a part of me that's like, I don't really want you to make the villain three-dimensional because like I don't want to
Yeah.
find myself empathizing with him. But at the same time, it does help the story move along. And I will say,
Yeah.
I didn't know that he was going to be in season 2, and I'm still. I'm still. I guess we're just going to see a lot of flashbacks because he's in the credits still as being in season 2.
Well, yeah, and that was that was actually a big thing, because there was a lot of talk of whether or not he was going to be in the second season, and during, I think like last week during the, you know, all the Hollywood stuff, Nicole Kidman, I guess, kind of spilled that he was going to be in the second season, and Reese, I guess Witherspoon was right next to her and had to like shut up, like
Yeah.
what are you talking about? And she
Yeah.
kind of had to backtrack a little bit because everybody else was like, is he going to be in the second season? And but yeah, his yeah, he's definitely in the credits, so he's here to stay.
Yeah, and what we mainly saw of him so far in season 2, or in this one episode, was mostly her. I think mostly her nightmares, and but I.
Oh, well, the only scene that was when they're both, he's wearing like a wife beater, a white shirt, and she's wearing a white shirt, and they're just like dancing and
Right.
hugging. That scene was that I felt that.
Yeah, yeah.
I felt that scene. She does definitely miss him, but then like when she's talking to her therapist about how, the nightmare that she had and how horrific it was, but then she's like also satisfying, it's just like, man,
Hmm.
I mean, he really, I mean, obviously she's really messed up from that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's always going to be something that's complex, especially now that they have kids, and she's still friends with Jane, and so now Ziggy obviously is out there, so there's just
Yeah.
constantly going to be these reminders, right? And
Yeah. And that's why I just feel so bad for Bonnie because she's in like such a bad place right now.
yeah,
Like, I mean, you got to think like she's just like this very like bohemian, like positive and, person and like probably a vegan, doesn't eat meat and here she is
hmm,
like now having to like wake up every day thinking that she killed an actual human being.
hmm,
Like
hmm.
that's going to be very hard for her character to come back from. Like it's going to be interesting to see how she is able to, you know, get out of that. And like telling, she wanted to tell the truth and Reese or and Madeline, you know, didn't or said that he slipped and now she has to just go with that. She can't backtrack her story now.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a big part of the season going forward because it seemed like even Celeste is kind of, you know, upset about how Madeline made this story, right? And now they all kind of had to
Yeah.
go along with it. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But I feel like we can't go a lot further without mentioning the obvious new character when we talk about actors and actresses, and that's Meryl Streep playing
Queen.
the Queen, playing Mary Louise, who is Perry's father, or sorry, mother.
Mother.
My bad.
Mother.
Yeah, Perry's mother, who comes to Monterey from San Francisco to help out with the boys in this time of, hey, their dad just died, And just what did you think overall about Mary Louise?
Oh, I'm glad she's not my mother-in-law.
Yeah, I know, right?
Jeez Louise, she's so and intense. I mean you see her, with the boys in the car and just, quiet and they just both instantly.
Hmm.
She's just her scare. I mean, she's very scary.
Yes, yes.
And
And
yeah.
she, I mean, she's such a good actress. It's so believable because she's got this low key, calm demeanor to her. She speaks kind of quietly, But then when she the boys pay attention immediately, right? And she just and you believe it because she has that intimidation factor for somebody who normally acts kind of meek, but then when she doesn't, it's just like, oh, she's so good at it. It was immediately
Yeah.
believable. I'm like that. And it kind of made me think of the things start to go off in your head about Perry grew up with this, right? And how did that affect? What more are we going to learn about Mary Louise that maybe affected him and how he ended up, you know, ending, being right?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Absolutely. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because I feel like the interesting what I really liked about season one was how it it basically it dealt with the idea of nature versus nurture, right? Because you had that whole idea the whole time that Ziggy was the one who was abusing Renata's daughter, Amabella. And Jane was super concerned that, like, well, is this a genetic thing, right? Because his dad sexually assaulted me, and maybe this is, born into his DNA. And, as it turns out, then we find out Perry was the one who assaulted her. But then it turns out that it wasn't Ziggy, but it was one of Perry's other son, but it was a twin, and it was the only twin who was aware of what he was doing to their mom, right? So
Exactly.
it very much leaned into this. It's definitely nurture. Like, this isn't a genetic thing. You're
Mhm.
not born predisposed to be a terrible
Mhm.
person, but if you're raised in an environment where this is what you think is acceptable, that's what's going to happen. And so it feels like they're going to lean
Yes.
more into that this season with now his mom being in the picture.
Yeah, I think you're definitely on to something there for sure. I think they're definitely gonna, kind of dive into the nurture part of season one for sure.
Hmm.
I think that's yeah. It's gonna be so good.
It's going to be really interesting to peel back the layers of Mary Louise. And I got to say this
Mhm.
too. She kind of it's interesting. She kind of reminds me. So my grandmother on my father's side was Japanese, and
Mhm.
in Japanese culture, it's especially back then where she moved here in the 60s. So she grew up in Japan and even pre World War II, and in that
Mhm.
they're very direct, right? And so they will comment on appearance, they will comment on anything like that, and that was a big source of contention between my mom and her. So
Ah.
immediately Mary Louise reminded me of that because she has that same kind of directness, right? And we
Uh-huh.
see that immediately when she meets Madeline. I mean, what it the
Oh my
oh,
gosh. Like poor Madeline, like she
I know.
came at her hot.
She really did. I mean, she left no prisoners with those comments. And it was just,
Oh my gosh.
and, to say like, so immediately commenting on her height, right? And be like, I don't trust little people. And it was like, oh, what an off putting
Whoa,
statement.
whoa.
It's like, what an off putting statement, right? Like, that's not at all fair. And
Yeah,
so,
I literally have no control over this, but thank you.
I know, right? And when I find,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Well, no, and I even think like even how when even like their second interaction when finally Madeline's like kind of like, trying to stick up for herself, like, I really did not appreciate the way you talk to me. And she gives off like this crazy like reasoning of some hostile experience she had with her, some roommate or
Yeah.
someone she went to boarding school with. It's like, wait a minute, like,
Yeah.
who are you, and who do you think like you can just get off like just treating people like that just because you had a bad experience when you were like a child?
Yeah.
So then again, maybe, you know,
Right. The nurture
it
thing.
showed. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
How deep are we going to go down this well? Right. That's going to be an
right.
interesting question. But I just want to mention we got a comment in the chat. Malik Clay saying this episode was epic. Yeah, I think we might disagree it's epic, but there's really interesting things coming up. So, but I
Oh,
will. Sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, I think I just can't wait to see. I feel like they can go very, very far with this. And I just have big hopes for them for this
Yeah.
season.
Well, and they've got the people in place to do a good job of it. Um, the thing that really got me about the second scene was how even when Mary Louise started to apologize, and you're like, oh, she's going to apologize. Maybe she's going to bring her character back. And even Madeline was like, oh, you know what? Her son just died. Like, and she starts to apologize. And so Madeline has that like, oh, okay, I'm starting to, don't be too hasty. She's going through a lot. I'm
Mm.
not going to judge her. And then she comes back with that whole, she's telling the story about her friend. And then she comes back to, what did she say? She said she was small and she had a bubbly personality. And she used that to hide the fact that she was vapid underneath. And then she said, "You remind me of her." And,
I
and it
know.
was like, oh my
But
goodness.
how do you respond to that?
She just has that way of just twisting the knife, right? It was
Mm,
vicious. So,
yeah.
well, okay,
It's
moving on. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's gonna be interesting to see how if she ever has a chance to, interact with Bonnie or, you know, Jane, or I don't know if she's gonna, pick at Madeline. I mean, who can actually, stand up for herself a little bit. What's
Right.
gonna happen if she attacks a character that may not be as, strong?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Um Well, so we can move on from Mary Louise. So I want to touch on a couple of scenes that seemed really out of place, and I'm interested to see where they go. So the first one was Ed, so Madeline's husband. He's at the grocery, and he runs into some woman who we've never met, and she recognizes him, but he doesn't recognize her at first. And then there's an exchange about she got her, breast augmentation, and it was just then it was over. Like she just walked away, and it was like, what was the point of that scene?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I mean, I think he said her name was like Tori, so like you said, yeah, I think he does have like some they know each other somehow, but I mean, obviously as soon as you saw her, it's like, "Oh, wow, very very well done.
Yeah,
Nice job, surgeon.
yeah,
Good
yes,
job, Anya."
yeah,
And but she said that she did that because she didn't like the way her nose looked, and it's like, "Oh gosh, wow, I'm glad I don't know how I would handle coming into interaction with like that response, but I think he handled it well with silence."
yeah, yeah. What do you say to it? I loved that exchange though. The writing was great because it was, yeah, I
And
had
she just kind of was like, okay, huh, all right, bye, and
right.
just walked off. Like it was just another. Oh, and she made that a very weird comment about how her Joseph, I'm assuming Joseph is her husband, doesn't like it or something. I was like, oh wow, you're just spilling the tea, honey.
Oh my God, I just realized who that is. That was that's the director. She's married to the director that slept with Madeline. Oh,
Oh.
I didn't catch that she said her husband
Wow,
Joseph.
me neither. Yeah, she did. She said her husband was Joseph.
Oh,
He doesn't like that.
she looks totally different.
Oh, totally different. I didn't. Must have been the boob job. It worked.
Yeah, I'm wondering I'm wondering if it's a different actress. because I don't remember. That does not look like her. That really, maybe that scene was just to be like, hey, it's not the same actress, so this is how we're going to introduce it, right? May,
Maybe, yeah.
but that was so bizarre. So, okay, because my thought process was that they introduced this scene because you see Ed a few times throughout the episode, and he seems to be having some difficulties, right?
Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's probably something still happening there with he and Madeline. And so my thought was, okay, this is some woman he dated in the past or something like that, and they're setting this up that he's going to have an affair, right? And they're going to
Yeah,
have
I
to
kind of yeah, I agree. I felt that too. Yeah.
right. But now if that is in fact the director's wife, maybe I was totally off base on that, and maybe it was just, hey, we're just reintroducing you to this character, and I just totally missed it because I didn't realize that's who that was.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to do research on this.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, anybody watching, leave a comment. What your thoughts on it?
Yeah, please do.
Is that actually supposed to be Joseph the director's wife, and is it the same actress? Because I don't know. I don't know. It really threw me for a loop. But another scene, similarly, was a scene that we saw with Gordon, Renata's husband, where she's getting a photo shoot, right? Because she's a
Oh yeah.
she's a CEO of some company, so they're doing some photo shoot, and then he comes out to talk to her, and she's just not really interested. And then he's drinking, and then he goes back, and he's sitting with this train set, and he's holding a baseball bat, and he appears really upset and drunk. So I don't know where that's gonna go
And
either.
yeah, and angry, and it's like that we've never really, I mean, there's never been a scene like this with this character. I mean, he's just Renata's husband who's kind of quirky and weird and like I don't you know what I mean? Like he's a very off-putting.
Yes.
And then yeah, just sitting there with the train set, it's like what where did this come from? Like I never got that vibe from him at all. Like he would, I don't know, be sitting there with the baseball bat. It was very, I mean, I'm hoping they tied this together with something because I had no idea what was going on. Because
Yeah,
that was it. There was nothing else after that.
I didn't either. And it could just be he was such a small part of the story in season one that maybe this is just we're setting the first kernels of he's going to get more screen time this season. So, if so, hey, more power to you. It would be kind of weird to do that and then still only give him one scene in this episode because we're still not seeing a
True.
lot about him. So I don't know. Maybe it's just going to set up some strife for Renata as she goes through because obviously now she's good with, because the whole all of season one, she was the villain, right? And it was her against, Madeline and Celeste and Jane. But now obviously she's on
Mm.
their side. So maybe they're going to set up something else to give her some more dynamics in her story. But I hope they go somewhere with it because it seemed weird and out of place.
Very, very creepy. It was very creepy. Yes.
All right, so let's talk about Bonnie. So Bonnie is having a hard time, uh,
All
as
right.
as you would expect after killing someone. Uh, and the big thing is she wanted to tell the truth. She wanted to tell the police. She wanted to turn herself in, and apparently Madeline created the story about Perry slipping and falling, and that he wasn't pushed, that he just slipped and fell, and so nobody would get into any trouble. And Bonnie's having a hard time with that, and we see her in this episode thinking about turning herself in. So, what are your thoughts overall on that?
Oh God, I just feel so bad for Bonnie. I really do. She's, having a really hard time, and I mean, even her like, having not, being able to talk to anyone about what happened other than, you know, the girls. And I feel like she needs more than just them to talk to about this.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
and she brought that up, right? And that is something that's difficult. Apparently, they were off on vacation the whole summer in between school seasons, So she's like, hey, I couldn't talk to anyone about this, right? This whole
Mhm.
time. That is something that's really difficult to deal with. The thing that I find interesting about it, and I still found it confuses me because it was clearly would have been self-defense. Whoever did it, like especially if Celeste is, but yeah, like I pushed him off of me and he slipped and fell and he died. And they talked at the end of last season like, oh, she would just get involuntary manslaughter. I was like, why would she be charged with anything? It's not like she took out a gun and shot him because let's just keep it. Okay, maybe this is me coming from the South and now living in the Yankee South, which is the Midwest, which is that we have like stand your ground laws here. Like you can literally just shoot somebody and say, "Oh, I felt threatened," and then there's like no repercussions. So to just push somebody and then they fall down the stairs, like Bonnie didn't try to kill him. She just pushed him off. He fell down the stairs and died. Why would there be any charges? Why are the police still investigating this? Move on. Like,
No, yeah, yeah. Let's. No, I can see that.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I'm a hippy dippy liberal, but I'm California. You go a little too far here. Like,
We need to dial it back a little bit.
just let the people. I mean, he was beating his wife. He got pushed and he fell down some stairs. Like, sad day, man. Don't beat your wife. What do you want me to do? Right? Like, it's just
Well, well, and maybe they were, they're also trying to protect Celeste because I mean, not everyone I think knows about the abuse. You know what I mean? So it's maybe, helping protect her from having to, explain why they pushed him is, he was beating his wife and he did rape this other girl.
yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe there might be a little, bit of that, coming into it, I'm sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it just man that would always confuse me, and I was kind of hoping. I guess they hinted at it at the end of season one, because I was watching the finale again, and I noticed you hear that lighter click at the end of the episode, and
Ooh,
and
so yeah.
and that's the cop, right? So
Yes.
they hinted that there was still going to be a thing, but I was really hoping it wouldn't. I was really hoping we could just move past like cops stop investigating. There's so many more important things to be investigating, right? It just I don't know. To me, that's a little off-putting.
Let's move past that. Let's see what they're doing with their lives,
Right.
moving forward. No, I can see that, but they're absolutely going to bring that back into it for sure.
Yeah. Uh, we got another comment from Malik, and I actually want to. Really want to read this, talk about this because it brings up a good point. I think her husband is angry. So it's talking about. I think they're talking about Bonnie. Oh no, Renata's husband. Okay, I think her husband is angry that his daughter's being abused and he's unhappy in his marriage, and that they think Renata is going to have an affair with the teacher. So do you remember the scene with her and the teacher?
Yes.
Where she's very Renata with him and totally
Yeah,
like,
yes.
and he's just kind of like, oh, what is happening? He's like, it's his first day, and I'm like, ooh, you didn't know what you were getting into coming to work in Monterey, did you? So, uh, I don't know if I didn't get the vibe that she was gonna have an affair with him, but could it happen? Maybe. I don't know. What do you think on that? Did you get that vibe?
No, I did not. I did not look into that at all. I didn't see that at all. But I mean, gosh, who knows? It's HBO. Who knows where they could take it? But I mean, yeah, obviously, he's definitely not happy in his marriage for sure. And maybe the fact of Amabella and everything that she went through, and first grade, that maybe it did send him over the edge a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Uh, yeah, Malik. They also say the Bonnie character was edgy, and I think that this character shows that she was one of the happiest moms, like Celeste, but now both are broken by the situation with Perry, and that is a good point. And on you add to that Jane, right? And now there's
uh,
just and then obviously Amabella being abused and what that did to Renata, and now it looks like stuff's going to come back on Madeline because of this, because of her deciding to make this secret. It's just this tornado of chaos that came out from this guy, right? And just, yeah, don't be a d-bag, like.
Right, yeah, and it's it's affecting all of these women in a just
Yeah,
a just a different way, and yeah,
it's
it's
just,
crazy.
this is what happens, right? Don't be a nice guy, don't hit people, don't abuse people,
Yeah,
because it
be
just
kind to one another.
ruins everybody else's lives. Um, okay, so then two things to before we wrapped up. Celeste and Jane. So we find out that Celeste is giving Jane money from Perry's estate, since obviously Ziggy is Perry's son. But Jane isn't cashing the checks, and she says that she feels complicit. Because, okay, he raped her. However, she was flirting, and she went back to the room with him beforehand. She made that decision knowing that he was a married man, and so she feels guilty about that. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hear what she what she's saying, and the fact that she did put herself in that position with a married man knowingly, and but I don't think, I mean, from what happened to her, I mean, I don't see how she could ever feel complicit. I don't know.
Well, I think what was
And
interesting.
and she also called it, she's like, it's rape money. And it's
Yeah,
just,
that was
oh,
weird.
that just breaks your heart when
Yeah,
she says that.
it's a very visceral term. Just by itself, rape is a very visceral term. But then to be like rape money, it's just that's a term that
Oh,
gets you, right? That's I definitely had a reaction to that one.
it's same. I
Yeah.
did too. It was very feels, big feels, like
Yes.
poor thing. Oh,
Yeah. The interesting thing that I find about it is the way that Celeste goes to therapy because she's having these nightmares about Perry even after his death, and she goes to therapy and she talks about how she feels guilty, right? And her therapist says like he's still winning, like he committed the ultimate violation, which is he still has you doubting yourself and feeling guilty even after he's dead. And it's like the same thing is happening to Jane, right? And so I feel like the show is really trying to make a point about how this works with these men that abuse women. And then people always
mhm.
ask like, why did the woman stay? Or they always come with these
Mm,
bullshit excuses about rape victims, like why don't they speak out and then stuff like that. And they're
yeah.
really exploring the multi-dimensionality of that and how difficult it is, and how the people that do this are so good at getting these women to doubt themselves even when they do nothing wrong.
Absolutely. I think you're definitely onto something there, and how hard it is to speak out no matter how you're being affected by it, whether you're a victim or someone on the outside looking in, or just knowing someone that could be going through it. It's just, so hard for what they have to deal with and how they have to, address it.
Hmm.
And it is, I think they are definitely doing a great job at how, they're doing to cope, deal.
Yeah, and especially I'm really interested to see how they explore that, because especially post Me Too, I think that's a really interesting and an
Hmm.
important discussion to have, and an important aspect to bring up. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes throughout the rest of the season. Uh,
Yeah.
the last little thing here is we had Abigail. She's not going to college.
Oh, yes,
Madeline's,
she is.
yeah, Madeline is not happy about it. Madeline is hopefully going to convince her that she should go to college. Uh, but yeah, Abigail is. It's interesting. It's interesting to watch that relationship, because she is very clearly her mother's daughter, and that in her hard-headedness, her idealism, right? And
100%. Yes.
like you could tell that they're the same people, and they're colliding because they're so strong-willed, and she's trying to assert herself, compared to her mom, but her mom is also like hey, I didn't go to college, and she makes the comment like, because you won't have a life, right? And on
Hmm.
the one hand, I look, yes, go to college, and that's great. On the other hand, that was a really kind of a deep, a hurtful line. Like if Ed had been there, I would have felt so bad for him. And that happened several times in season 1 where she would make these comments,
Yes.
and Ed would be like, "Oh, ouch," because you can see this continually comes up with Madeline. She feels like her life isn't like great, and she mentions in season 1 too, she's always tied to this idea of it being perfect, and that's still happening. And it's like, but she's sitting here saying like, you won't have life, you don't go to college. I didn't go to college, so what she's saying is like she doesn't have a life, but like her life is pretty damn good, right? But she has such a
Right.
hard time recognizing it.
Yeah. And and she's definitely just trying to live through, live that part, you know, of life that she missed out on through Abigail. And I think that, yeah, absolutely, they're both very strong-minded women. So this definitely tends to not go very well. But
Mm-hmm.
I think we all know Abigail's probably not going to college. Uh,
She,
so
I have hope. I have hope that they'll bring her around by the end of the season. And she'll go to college, but because especially like she has, and obviously in season 1 she had that big idea of she was gonna auction off her virginity to bring awareness
Mhm.
to trafficking, human trafficking, and that was like a very like, yeah, this is something a 17-year-old would do, right? Who a 17-year-old social justice person growing up in California, who is
In
very
Monterey, yeah.
right, who is very strong-willed. Like, yeah, in this season, they're setting it up too with she's gonna go work for some for-profit, some
Startup
startup,
company.
yeah, that makes for-profit housing for the homeless, and it's like on the one, it was like, okay, that felt super California to me because it was like making housing for the homeless is great, but like for profit, like why did it need to be? That's not super woke to be making for profit housing, but
Uh,
that's me. That's me. But
yeah.
anyway, what are your thoughts on what we're gonna see from Abigail and Madeline this season? I think it's gonna be a big
You know,
thing.
I mean, it wasn't I think it'll I don't think it'll be a big thing. I think it'll definitely be a minor thing, but I think, their relationship, like, the fact, and you definitely saw this in season 1 about the love that Madeline has for her children because she has lived, she's been living through her children her whole life,
Mm-hmm.
and when even when Abigail in season 1, has, kind of pulled away from her a little bit, and how that scene of them, at the piano in season 1 where, Madeline is crying, and, Abigail is saying, Bonnie is Bonnie to me. She's my friend, but you will always be my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Chloe come in, and it's just like the love that she has for those girls is like something that she would kill someone for,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
so her and Abby's relationship, like you said, they are so much alike that they just
Yeah.
really don't mix well in some conversations.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that she can find a way to explain to Abby that she's just trying to make sure that she just doesn't have to make some of the hard decisions that she had to as a young mom or a young female trying to come up in this world.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how their mother daughter relationship kind of builds there.
Yeah, totally agree. I gotta say, didn't get nearly enough Chloe in this episode, so that was disappointing.
I could agree with that. It was very little Chloe, even though she is such a little badass.
She's awesome. We need 100% more Chloe in the next episode. HBO. I mean,
Yeah,
they've already filmed it. What are they gonna do now? But still,
get on it.
yeah. All right. Well, do you have anything else that you wanna cover?
No, not really. I mean, I'm excited to see where, yeah, where they're going to take this season. And like I said, the acting was great this episode. It was, getting introduced to the characters again. It was everything I wanted. And I'm so happy that they're doing a second season.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it was really good. I'm really excited to see what's going on. It's interesting that they decided. I was wondering if they were going to set it up like they did last season, which is where it starts with this mystery of who got murdered and who did it, right? And then we don't find out to the end. And I was like, are they going to set up some kind of mystery thing in the first episode of this season that we're going to get resolved, or are they just going to go totally different direction? It's just going to pick up right after, and we're just going to keep going with that story. And they did the latter, and I like that because it changes up the formula, and I don't know that it would have held. It's kind of like True Detective season 2, right? They tried to do the same formula as season 1, and it didn't quite work out. And
Yeah.
so I think, although True Detective season 3 was pretty good, but in True Detective season 3 they changed the formula a little bit. So I think it was a good decision, and I'm excited to see where it keeps going. So obviously you give it a recommend. I give it a recommend. Totally.
Absolutely. 100%. Recommend.
Yep.
Watch it.
Yep. Well, I think that will about do it for our review of Big Little Lies season 2 episode 1. What have they done? We plan to do this every week live after the episode airs at about 10:30 p.m. Although this episode was short. This episode was only 45 minutes. So
Yeah.
we might bump that
Really
up.
short.
We might schedule them we might schedule them for 10 o'clock and try to, if it goes a little over, then we'll be a little late. But you can expect us somewhere about 10 to 10:30. We'll go live every Sunday with our review of the latest episodes. So until then, you can like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of this episode and where you think they're going to go with it. How many Oscars do you think, or I guess Emmys, do you think Meryl Streep is going to win for this? And yeah. And also follow us on our social media, twitter.com/casualnotion, Instagram.com/casualnotion, and Facebook.com/casualnotion. And follow us on Twitch. We stream there every once in a while, twitch.tv/casualnotion. We just do gameplay kind of stuff. And it's usually Haley's not involved. So if you're here for Haley, don't follow us on Twitch because she doesn't get involved in that. Anyway, I think that's it. So until next time, keep it casual, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.